known now. We're not talking about theories anymore. We're talking about certainties. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in August 2022, Pakistan witnessed the most severe floods in its history, caused by the intense monsoon rain. Over 33 million people were affected by these floodwaters. However, within this challenge lies an opportunity. The urgency of the situation demands collective actions from all the stakeholders to pledge towards a greener Pakistan. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, our agenda is packed with enlightening sessions today. So without further ado, let us embark on a journey towards a greener and a more resilient future. Together, let us drive economic change and pave a way for a better tomorrow. Well, setting the stage for this crucial conversation on driving economic change for a greener future, please join me in welcoming Mr. Zishan Ijaz, Vice President at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan and tax partner at KPMG Lahore, for his opening remarks.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome you all. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable council members, esteemed guests and dignitaries. It is my real honor to welcome you all to this conference, which is titled as Driving Economic Change, Working Today for the Greener Tomorrow. When we were thinking about this particular topic, we were also wondering how to link it with the economy, how to link it with our profession. But as the thoughts grew deeper, and as we thought about what's the changes being happening in the world, whether it's our profession or other professions, especially related to environment and sustainability. So there comes the obvious nexus between the two. Generally, it has been perceived, whether some of my colleagues say, that if ICAP as a premier accountancy body is shifting its focus from accountancy to the climate change. But the question is, we are moving towards sustainability reporting. We are moving towards the organizations who have to follow all those requirements which are going to be there on the table and going to be the reality when it comes to working with the outside world, not only with the outside world, but within this country, Pakistan. While this topic has been debated for some time, and initiatives like Billion Tree Tsunami and other initiatives have been taken, the global importance of this issue is increasing evident, and as seen is recently held COP28. Pakistan also holds an important significance if you talk about Belt and Road Initiative. Our geographic position plays an important part, including the Arabian Sea, several deserts, major rivers, and more than 7,000 glaciers. And as we have been highlighting in the background, the average temperature of Pakistan over last century has increased 0.6 degrees centigrade. As a result, there are floods. So these are become an important topic for the times to come. On the other hand, Lahore has been ranked as one of the top cities in some part of the year when it comes to pollution. Same is happening to Karachi and other parts of this country. All these important factors ultimately impact our economic growth, and there is a clear nexus between this environmental changes and the economy of the country, thus resulting into a navigation wherein this complex landscape should be focused on 5 pillars: sustainability, economic growth, financial market stability, business perpetuity, and the fiscal laws. We are grateful to our esteemed speakers and industry experts who have taken time out for their busy schedules to help us explore opportunities for related to emission reduction, sustainable growth, alliances, transitioning from an existential threat to an innovation opportunity, and understanding the national policies in place to facilitate this transition aligned with the international economic standards. As a finance professional, we serve as a change agent within our organizations. Therefore, it is utmost importance within our organization for us to understand these subjects to implement corrective measures for the better and more secure future for the generations to come. In the end, I would like to welcome you all for the knowledge-based evening and the whole day which is ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zishan, for your insightful opening remarks, emphasizing the critical need for sustainable solutions. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce you to our first keynote speaker, the Honorable President of ICAP and esteemed partner at AF Ruxon & Co., Mr. Farokh Rahman. Mr. Farokh Rahman became one of the youngest partners at the age of 32. He currently chairs the Accounting Standards Board and the Practicing Member Committee at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. He also serves as a member of IFAC's Professional Accountancy Organization Development and Advisory Group and is a board member of the South Asian Federation of Accountants. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Farokh Rahman.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Members, past presidents, I can see Hafiz Yusuf Saab, Ashfaq Tola Saab, Adi Latif, बहुत सारे और लोग जो कि गेस्ट्स होंगे, who are not members, आप सबको अस्सलाम वालेकुम. What a moment आज लाहौर में हम सब जमा हैं for having a discussion on ये ज़ीशान ने subject choose किया है, बड़ा pertinent है. We are उस fortnight में हैं, बल्कि in fact we are very close to that week when the budget will be announced, 7th of June, जो कि expected है. उस period के अंदर having a discussion around driving economic change and linking it to sustainability, climate change, greener tomorrow, all of these words signify only one thing, and that is कि हमारा environment, हमारा country, each one of us gets affected with developments around क्लाइमेट और उसका जो इम्पैक्ट है पाकिस्तान की इकॉनमी के ऊपर, all are relevant. So Zishan, congratulations on selecting this topic, and the timing of this is also something which is important enough that our voice and what we discuss over here will certainly be heard by the relevant quarters. Since we are in the week of, almost in the week of budget, I would like to touch upon some topics where there is relevance to our today's discourse, as well as what the Institute thinks about economy. I'm not an economic expert. I'm sure during the rest of the day we are going to discuss the relevant topics, and we will have some takeaways. But from the Institute standpoint, one thing is very clear, that for our country to move forward, for our economy to flourish, the need for documentation of economy is paramount. Institute over a number of years has been making these recommendations, have been raising this voice that documentation of economy is something where even if because I'm standing here in the community of accountants, हम ये imagine नहीं कर सकते कि एक कंपनी है जिसके अंदर जो है वो ट्रांजैक्शंस हो रही हैं, और उन ट्रांजैक्शंस का जो है वो प्रॉपर उसकी रेवेन्यू, सेल्स, कॉस्ट, एक्सपेंडिचर, एवरीथिंग, इसका एक प्रॉपर रिकॉर्ड नहीं है. So for a country like Pakistan, which is around 25 million people, and to have our segments of economy which are not documented, we say it's a $300 billion, $300 to $400 billion economy. But is that the number correct? We are all accountants. There will be a number of questions looking at the way our economy is currently. A very significant sector, a very significant proportion of that is undocumented. So that is one area where we continue to make or raise our voice, that we need to take measures. Every year we submit our proposals to FBR for budget, and one of the most important aspect in that relates to our recommendations around documentation of economy. Further, I want to highlight that in Pakistan, I don't know whether many of you are aware or not, we do have financial statements of Pakistan, of our country. But those financial statements are again prepared based on mainly cash basis. Again, standing from the Institute Forum, the accrual accounting is again one of our recommendations that we continue to make to the government, and for bringing any economic change, I think to have an accurate financial position, just like for any company, for a country, is also paramount. Linking this economic aspect of our country to the topic also that I mentioned about the sustainability. Sustainability concept is, I would say, बहुत एक इसकी जो लेंथ एंड ब्रेथ है वो बहुत बड़ा है, और सस्टेनेबिलिटी के कॉन्सेप्ट को अभी प्रेजेंटली जो मोस्ट कॉमनली हम इसको अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं वो इन द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ क्लाइमेट चेंज, मैं अभी मेंशन भी कर रहा था. सो क्लाइमेट चेंज के जब कॉन्टेक्स्ट के अंदर बात होती है तो क्लाइमेट चेंज भी एक बहुत बड़ा सब्जेक्ट है, एंड जो एक मोस्ट कॉमनली अंडरस्टूड एस्पेक्ट क्लाइमेट के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखा जाता है वो GHG इमिशंस की बात होती है. ये जी emissions को जब हम further analyze करते हैं तो एक हमारी country के लिए country के हिसाब से देखा जाता है which is called nationally determined contributions, and then when you go into the company's corporate sector, there we are talking about the scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 emissions. So that is one topic within the climate change that is most understood by generally people. So I'm just restricting myself to that. Pakistan is also, Pakistan is a signatory to a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And under that umbrella or framework, countries are also required to consider and bring in emission trading scheme for the respective jurisdictions who are signatory to that. Emission trading schemes, I'm sure during the day there will be discussion on this carbon credit, carbon offsets. So for Pakistan, again, linking to our topic, driving economic change, this will be one aspect when we talk about sustainability, and within sustainability, climate change, and within climate change, I've mentioned this emission trading scheme. Those companies who have more significant emissions impacts, I think for them any emission trading scheme will bring in some economic impacts. So I would like to highlight all of those who are present. Keep that on your radar. I think this is something which is being considered in Pakistan, and when this will come, there will be impacts on many of our corporates. Lastly, one other matter I would like to highlight in terms of, again, Pakistan economy, the increase in exports in Pakistan is something where I think overall the government is focused, our respective sectors, they are also focused. So when it comes to the institute, we have also made this one of our focal point where we are concentrating on the export of accountancy services. Export of accountancy services, in my view, is one such opportunity which is a win-win situation, not only for the individuals who will get associated with this export of accountancy services, but those organizations like the professional firms. Of course, the institute image will go up, as well as it is in the interest of the country as well. So we chartered accountants are exceptionally talented. We are fully trained, and we have such skill sets which are acceptable around the world. You are already aware that more than 25% of our members are working internationally. So our product is acceptable, is used internationally. So keeping in view that currently in many of the jurisdictions there are challenges in terms of intake into the accountancy profession. So Pakistan has this opportunity. We have sufficient number of people. We can increase this significantly as well. And as I said, all of you are properly equipped to serve the international market in terms of any accountancy related services. So I would like to draw your attention because, as I said, this is not only linked to the national objective of increasing the exports, but we can also put our contribution to this. I'm sure during the day there will be some very engaging discussions. I have noticed there are very excellent presenters, panelists who are going to share topic on the very specific matters, and you will take away some really good points for further acting upon those takeaways. So in the end, I would like to congratulate all the team members who have made this assembly possible. Special congratulations to Zishan, who is really working very, very hard to have a conference done on economic matters, and I think you will find this very fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farooq, for your impactful address. It sets the stage for our discussions today. So, building upon Mr. Farooq Rahman's emphasis on green economic growth, our first session focuses on carbon markets, potential for Pakistan, and role of private sector. So, first of all, we're going to have a video of NDRMF. So that was about NDRMF. So I would like to invite Mr. Bilal Anwar, CEO of the National Disaster Risk Management Fund. With 18 years of experience in international climate change policy, climate finance, and sustainable development, Bilal is well-versed in advising on effective climate solutions for developing countries. Give it up for Bilal Anwar.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome, and assalamu alaikum to all the dignitaries and ICAP office barriers. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to be part of your community and part of this wonderful event today. We're extremely happy, and I'm sure that many of you will be wondering what is the National Disaster Risk Management Fund, a government fund who has a mandate of dealing with the disaster risks and climate change, is doing here with the community of practitioners, accountants, as well as the people from the private sector. I hope with my little introduction and the subsequent session, which is just about to follow after my introduction, that's going to make it a little bit clearer to you. And If not, that's definitely going to raise few more questions into your heads, into your brains, and that is even better. That means that you're going to be approaching us, you're going to be reaching to us, and we'll be extended our support and our helping hand that how we can work together. That exactly is the purpose and the aim of us being here and our presence here. But just before that, I think we should really appreciate ourselves. I mean, it's kind of a wow, kind of a movement for me as a person as well, who has been actually working in the climate change sector for last. It's not 18. I'm an old man. It's 24 years, and also for my institution as well, National Disaster Risk Management Fund as well. Driving economic change, working towards a greener tomorrow, where the economic change and economic development is being discussed in collaboration, in the context, or through the lens of greener tomorrow, or the climate change, or sustainability, or disaster risk reduction, or disaster risk management. There is so much, we are so much rich in the vocabulary and the terminology for these kind of, the challenge which this humanity is facing, not only in Pakistan, but across the globe. So I think this is quite an achievement, and I must say that ICAP should be really congratulating themselves, and I'll take this opportunity to congratulate you to bringing these two very important issues and the challenges together. I think by being here, by holding this event, and by all of you being here and listening, I will take and I'll assume this kind of an understanding that that we are actually expressing our commitment that the economic change in Pakistan and many other parts of the world just cannot happen without having the greener perspective into the consideration, or the climate change into the consideration. They are very much interdependent on each other. I think this is the kind of approach, this is the kind of a methodology which we have to adopt as a society, as a community of practitioners, of accountants, as a government, as well as we from the government sector who have been actually mandated to undertake or to drive this agenda forward. So I think this is quite a big commitment which we are actually expressing, and we are committing ourselves today here. So we should be happy about it, because in many other parts of the world, and I'm telling you, in some of the very globalized as well as economically advanced economies, I think they might not have traveled that kind of a journey. But for us, I think this makes sense, and this is really important, the kind of economic as well as the climate change challenges which the country is facing. Flood 2022 is still fresh in our memories, but I think the studies and the research basically show that we should be ready with these kind of climate change challenges more frequently, with more intensity, and of course consequently with more kind of damages in terms of economic damages as well as the lives which are lost in that. So I think the fundamental question is that whether we are ready for this or not, and this is what we as an NDRMF actually want to take this opportunity, and we want to highlight just a couple of issues, a couple of challenges which the society is facing in general. And what I personally believe is that ICAP can actually play a very, very important role, because you can drive the change within the private sector, within the industries, and you can actually lead through the implementation of the international global ISO standard, as well as the accounting standard, and number of other GHG standards, which actually can lead the companies towards decarbonization or reduce emissions, or actually aligning their production processes as well as procurement processes, number of other processes with the sustainability practices which are being practiced around the world. So I think this is what we want to achieve today, and you'll be finding a lot more that in the next session as well. So I would just say that the purpose for us is just twofold, And one is to highlight the importance of the issue itself, and just to make you realize that how effective the private sector in general can actually play a role, a very effective role in terms of curbing the emissions, limiting the emissions, moving toward the sustainability, as well as playing your constructive and a positive role for disaster risk reduction, for climate adaptation, and number of other associated areas along with this issue and with this challenge. Now, the other one is just breaking a couple of kind of myths, which sometimes are very much prevalent and in the different communities and the different societies, especially within the private sector. So the one is, which you always hear about, Pakistan, of course, is as one of the frontline state which actually suffering the challenges and the economic cost for the climate change, which of course is correct. And the second point, which is very often made, is that in terms of our global contributions to the global carbon emissions budget, our role or our contributions are minuscule or very little, which of course is also correct. You know, it's less than 1%, just to be precisely correct. But I think there's another way of looking at it as well. And you know, being a responsible global citizen and being responsible for our societies to be aligned and to be safeguarded and protected with the impacts of the climate change, I think we need to be very clear and we need to be very honest with ourselves, and especially when it comes to our production processes, our industrialization, our transportation, and a number of other areas as well. Our carbon intensity, the carbon intensity for production in Pakistan is one of the highest in the world. Actually, we are in the league of the nations, we are in the league of the industrialists, where the carbon intensity for production is pretty high. So what does it mean is there is a huge room and a potential for reductions. Farooq Saab mentioned about scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions. That's absolutely correct. That you know, there is a huge potential and room for reducing the emissions in all three scopes, and particularly the scope 3, which is the most difficult and the most challenging one in terms of its quantification. I think so. This is one thing which we need to understand, and where the industry have a very important and critical role to play. It's not only to reduce their emission for the sake of the compliance purposes, and which is also is very important. It's for the sake of the sustainability and being the globally socially responsible business entities. I think that's also equally important, and that's part of the many international accounting standards for which you will have to report, and I think this is the high time for which to prepare ourselves for reporting purposes, for compliance purposes, as well as for transparency purposes as well. But I think more than that is to basically look into from a different perspective. It's for the cost reduction purposes as well. And I think there is a room for that to reduce your the cost of production and the cost of your doing business. And for that, we have the practices, we have the methodologies which are available and which can be integrated without much of the effort. So this long held kind of a myth or a kind of a understanding that aligning with climate change or complying with the international standards for climate change or sustainability, it means increase or inflated cost of the production, which of course is not the case. If you want to switch, I think for any kind of a production, for any kind of manufacturing activity, energy plays a very big part of it. And in Pakistan, we haven't really harnessed the potential for renewable energy much yet, and there's still quite a room for this kind of harnessing and this kind of integrating the renewable energy into the production processes as well. And the cost has gone so tremendously down in the last 20 years. So there is a very clear and very subtle business case for that, and it should be a very big decision for the industry to make to transition to the renewable energy. Similarly, in other areas as well. Now, so I think it is the point is that it is a profitable, and there is the profitable ways for transitioning towards complying with the sustainable practices as well as the climate change, and the international mechanisms rather be for a compliance standard for GRI protocol or a GHG protocol, a number of other, but the carbon markets remains a very, very important instrument for which once again we haven't really experimented much, and we really haven't really sought the benefit out of the carbon markets from the international mechanisms as well. So I think that's another one area. Now, the second myth is, and this is kind of a fashionable statement in Pakistan, a kind of a cliche that, okay, what is the government doing for us? And I won't really disagree with you on this point either, but here, National Disaster Risk Management Fund as a government entity is actually here, and we are trying our level best to be part of all these discussions which are happening around the country within the private sector as well as in the other sectors as well, so that we can support, we can technically support, assist, and help you out that how you can actually shift and how you can transition towards the sustainable practices, and you do it in a profitable manner without really adding the cost to your production processes, without really making you non-competitive in comparison to the other players in the market. So this is what we want to actually break the myth that the practices are available, the standards are available, the protocols are, the methodologies are available. We just need to be altering and shifting your manufacturing and your industrial and your other practices in a way, and you can seek the benefits out of it. And the government is here as part of, we are a very small entity, we are a very small government fund, which is just about to support you. Now, I think I would just like to take a couple of more minutes to highlight, being a government fund, but realizing and having a very heavy mandate on us that to move or to contribute towards a resilient Pakistan. And we've been actually thinking extremely hard in the last few months that what does that our mandate mean? Does it mean that we only actually work with the communities in the far-flung, in the remote areas, and we actually safeguard them from the floods and the earthquakes and number of heat waves and number of other kind of disasters, or we have a bigger role to play? We actually learned a lot from the private sector. We have stolen a lot of tricks, and we've stolen a lot of tools from the toolbox of the private sector. And we want to utilize the dynamic nature and the speed of the private sector. And this is what actually led us in the development of a new approach within the NDRMF, that how we can work and how we can actually play a much bigger, much bolder, and much proactive role in the disaster risk reduction and the climate adaptation and sustainability and in decarbonization. Now that led us to development of our a new business strategy. It's a 10-year business strategy, and which have, of course, the disaster risk reduction in a very classical fashion, very tightly integrated as part of the business strategy, but we have actually explored a number of other areas, including the carbon markets and a number of other areas, for example, the innovative solutions, innovative instrument for disaster risk financing, once again, for which the private sector have a very big and very important role to play. Very, very recently, actually just a couple of days ago, we got the first ever national disaster risk financing strategy approved, and for which we are going to be incorporating the disaster risk insurance, crop insurance, infrastructure insurance, a number of other areas, the very first time in Pakistan. And once again, we are taking the mandate on NDRMF, and we will be working with the private sector very closely in the design, implementation, and the promotion of these different instruments in the market. So there is a much bigger role to play for all of us. And we, as an NDRMF, we just cannot do all this without the support from the private sector and without the support for the bodies like ICAP and many others as well. So we are here to provide you that support. We are here to give you that kind of an education awareness, and we will be taking your ideas and your inputs and views very carefully and further refine our work processes and our approaches in moving forward. I thank you very much, and I'm very much looking forward to meet and greet with you during our coffee breaks. And my colleagues are here who will be actually running the next session, which is a lot more technical oriented, and will be addressing some of very pertinent questions which I'm sure you'll be having in your heads. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bilal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to invite Mr. Fawad Hayat, who has over 17 years of diverse professional experience with government organizations, the United Nations, and the private sector. He currently leads the climate change and World Bank portfolio at the NDRMF. He has represented Pakistan at numerous national and international platforms and headed the climate finance unit at the Ministry of Climate Change. Please welcome Mr. Fawad Hayat.
Assalamu alaikum ji. Thank you so much ji. My name is Fawad Hayat ji. I'm the head of climate change at the National Disaster Risk Management Fund जी. अभी CEO बिलाल साहब ने बताया कि हम लोग क्या करते हैं, NDRMF क्या रोल प्ले कर रहा है सारे में, आज हम यहाँ क्यों हैं और इस पार्टनरशिप की ज़रूरत क्या है. उससे पहले ज़िशान साहब और फ़ारूक साहब ने एक्चुअली बताया और मुझे सुन के खुशी हुई कि हमने स्टार्ट ही वहाँ से किया है कि स्कोप 1, 2, 3 इमिशंस क्या होती हैं. अगर इस लेवल पे चीज़ें हैं तो आई एम प्रीटी श्योर कि हॉल जो है उसको भी सब पता होगा कि हम किन इमिशंस की बात कर रहे हैं और आज की जो डिस्कशन है वो किस तरह आगे लेके जाई जा सकती है. अभी जो पूरा एक हुआ जब CEO बोल रहे थे तो आपने पीछे देखा कि NDRMF क्या कर रहा है. NDRMF ने आज तक क्या किया है. हमने को 350-400 मिलियन डॉलर जो है वो स्पेंड किया है इन अबाउट 18-19 डिफरेंट थीमेटिक एरियाज जी. और जियोग्राफिकल बॉर्डर्स जो हैं वो मैंग्रोव प्लांटेशन से लेके ऑन द कोस्ट इन सेंजी अप टू GB जाते हैं, AJK जाते हैं. वी सर्व इन ऑल एरियाज जी, एट फेडरल एंड सब फेडरल लेवल जी, प्रोविंसेस में, रीजन्स में, वी गो एवरीवेयर जी. और सिर्फ एक थोड़ा सा टिप देने के लिए कि हम लोग कहाँ से कहाँ तक एनहांस्ड पोर्टफोलियो की बात कर रहे हैं, तो अगर मैं GB में बात करूँ तो NDRMF हैज़ बीन एबल कि वो 1122 को इतना स्ट्रेंथन किया है कि द रिस्पॉन्स टाइम हैज़ कम डाउन फ्रॉम 10 to 7 minutes. So that's a saving of 30% जी. That's how disaster response has improved. Resilience building in the country has improved जी. And then going all the way down to Sindh जी, where we're planting mangroves जी, जो कि carbon credits generate कर रहे हैं. So that's first project कि जहाँ पे carbon credits को हम trade कर रहे हैं. आज की discussion उसी के ऊपर है. NDRMF का role क्या है, carbon markets क्या हैं, and how can we all benefit together into this one जी. So I'll start with understanding carbon markets and the potential for Pakistan जी. All right, ji. So what is carbon markets, ji? This all will accumulate from the fact what are these all three scope emissions, ji. So carbon markets is a specialized type of financial market through which carbon credits can be bought or sold, ji. So it's carbon financing कह लें, trading कह लें, तो उसके ऊपर चीजें. All right, ji. So when we delve into carbon markets, ji, we got to understand there are two different types of carbon markets, ji. One is compliance markets, ji. The other is voluntary markets. President साहब ने जब यहाँ जिक्र किया तो उन्होंने NDCs का जिक्र किया, Nationally Determined Contributions जी. That's as a party to Paris Agreement जो कि UNFCCC के नीचे है, तो तमाम मुमालिक ने, जो एक मुल्क को पार्टी कहा जाता है, तो तमाम मुमालिक ने या तमाम पार्टीज़ ने, they're signatory to the Paris Agreement, उन्होंने ये किया है कि जो Nationally Determined Contributions है उसके मुताबिक हम अपनी emission reduction कितनी करेंगे. जब emissions की बात करते हैं तो CEO ने touch upon किया on the fact कि जी ठीक है, we are less than 1% of the global emitters, we are on 146th on the emission scale, but other than that हमारी intensity कितनी ज़्यादा है जी. हम अगर air quality की बात कर लें तो 3 शहर आ जाते हैं, आप मीथेन की बात कर लें तो 7th लार्जेस्ट emitter आ जाते हैं, और ये इसी तरह चीज़ें चल रही हैं. हमारी जो transport emissions हैं, energy emissions हैं, they are on the rise जी. अब जब emissions के ऊपर बात कर रहे हैं तो हम फिर आ जाते हैं carbon markets के अंदर. So compliance is an established mechanism जी, जहाँ पे absolute limits होंगी जी, ये गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से है. जो voluntary है उसमें वेरा है, गोल्ड स्टैंडर्ड है, डिफरेंट स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं जी, ये voluntary होती है. जो आज हमारा ज़्यादा मकसद है जिसको डिस्कशन करने की तरफ, जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर की तरफ ज़्यादा लेके जाने के लिए, कि आप voluntary मार्केट से कैसे मुस्तफ़ीद होते हैं और आप अपनी emission reduction कैसे करते हैं जी. एक छोटा सा कंपैरिजन दिया है कि कंप्लायंस क्या है जी, voluntary क्या है, उसके ऊपर डिस्क्रिप्शन सी है. कैप एंड ट्रेड एक चीज़ कर रहा है, एक नॉन ऑब्लिगेटरी है बट गिव्स यू फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी. प्राइमरी स्टेक होल्डर्स इस साइड पे जो है वो रेगुलेटरी बॉडीज़ हैं, उस साइड पे रजिस्ट्री है, प्रोजेक्ट डेवलपर्स हैं जी, ब्रोकर्स हैं जी. इधर जो है क्राइट टाइप में आ जाता है, फिर गवर्नमेंट रेगुलेशंस आ जाती हैं, उधर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन सस्टेनेबिलिटी आ जाती है, इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड की हम बात कर रहे हैं उसके अंदर. एनवायरमेंटल अपलिफ्ट की जब हम बात करते हैं, इस साइड पे बेयर मिनिमम वो लो टू हाई चल रहा होता है, कॉस्ट दोनों की वेरी कर रही होती है जी। बहुत डिटेल में अगर हम चले जाएंगे तो जब हम कंप्लायंस मार्केट की बात करते हैं, फिर हम इटमोस की बात कर लेते हैं, तो वो एक और डिबेट उस पर चली जाती है, तो प्राइस भी उसी तरह वेरी कर रही होती है। उनके साथ से चलें जी, एडवांटेजेस क्या हैं? जब हमने समझा कि वॉलंटरी और कंप्लायंस जो है वो दोनों मार्केट्स के अंदर सब 4 बड़ी चीजें निकल के आती हैं जी, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, एडिशनैलिटी, मेजरेबिलिटी और इनोवेशन जी। ओवरऑल इसके अंदर चलते हैं। जो फोकस किया जाता है, जो बैकबोन है, दैट इज कैप एंड ट्रेड जी, अ कॉमन टर्म फॉर अ गवर्नमेंट रेगुलेटरी प्रोग्राम डिजाइन टू लिमिट और कैप द टोटल लेवल ऑफ एमिशंस ऑफ सर्टेन केमिकल्स, पर्टिकुलरली कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ इंडस्ट्रियल एक्टिविटी जी। आज थोड़ी डिस्कशन कैप एंड ट्रेड के ऊपर ही चलेगी कि वो चीज क्या है, विल ट्राई टू एक्सप्लेन दैट जी। ऑलराइट जी, सो ये एक पिक्चर है। सो दिस स्लाइड एक्चुअली एक्सप्लेन्स व्हाट इज कैप एंड ट्रेड। इससे पहले इफ आई में आस्क हॉल में कितने लोग हैं जिनको इस आइडिया से है, जो नॉलेज है कि कैप एंड ट्रेड क्या चीज होती है जी? इफ आई कैन सी सम हैंड्स, कोई वेरी फ्यू जी, चलें, थैंक यू जी, वी स्टिल हैव सम हैंड्स जी इन द, ऑलराइट जी। सो आई विल स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द लेफ्ट साइड जी। सो दैट्स एन एमिटर ए जी। एमिटर ए क्या करता है कि उसकी रिड्यूस्ड जीएचजी इमिशंस है, जो येलो बार है वो उसकी एक्स्ट्रा है, ऊपर उसके कैप आई है, जो एक्स्ट्रा है अपनी कैप से, जो नीचे उसने अपनी कैप बचाई है वो सेल कर सकता है, जो कि ओवरऑल कैप एंड ट्रेड के अंदर चला जाता है। और एमिटर बी है, वो अपनी कैप से ज्यादा प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है। अब उसने भी किसी तरह कार्बन न्यूट्रल होने की तरफ जाना है, जो हमें कॉन्सेप्ट देख रहे हैं प्राइवेट सेक्टर के अंदर के जी, नेट जीरो हमने होना है, हमने प्रोसेसेस इंप्रूव करने हैं। तो जब प्रोसेस इंप्रूवमेंट की बात करते हैं तो वो 2 तरह होते हैं, या तो आप अपनी इमिशन जो है वो रिड्यूस कर दें, जो कि ए में है, या फिर ये है कि आप रिड्यूस नहीं कर सकते तो फिर आप उसको ऑफसेट करें। ऑफसेट के लिए उसकी लिमिट ऊपर चली गई है, तो समबडी जो कि विच इज अंडर द कैप जी वो सेल करेगा, और समबडी जिसने ऑफसेट करना है वो उसको परचेज करेगा। तो ओवरऑल इक्वेट करके कार्बन न्यूट्रलिटी की तरफ हम जाएंगे, जिसको हम नेट जीरो का कॉन्सेप्ट भी कहते हैं। ऑलराइट जी, कार्बन क्रेडिट जो आ गया, अब ऑफसेट हम किसको कर रहे हैं? सो दैट्स 1 कार्बन क्रेडिट इज इक्वल टू 1 टन कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड जी। आगे उसकी थोड़ी एक्सप्लेनेशन भी मैं दूंगा कि वो रिड्यूस कर देते हैं या रिमूव कर देते हैं उसको एटमॉस्फेयर से, उस लिहाज से। पर्पस है जी टू एनकरेज बिजनेसेस, industries and countries to adopt sustainable practices and reduce their carbon footprints जी। फॉर्मेशन क्या है जी? ट्रेडिंग मार्केट्स है जी, जिसका मैंने अभी एक्सप्लेन किया, जिसके ऊपर डिस्कशन भी हमारी चल रही है कि आर बॉट एंड सोल्ड ऑन वेरियस प्लेटफॉर्म्स जी। कार्बन ऑफसेट मैकेनिज्म है जी, इंडिविजुअल्स एंड कंपनीज कैन परचेज कार्बन क्रेडिट्स टू ऑफसेट देयर एमिशंस, बैलेंसिंग देयर कार्बन फुटप्रिंट जी। और दूसरा जो है वो प्राइस डायनामिक्स के ऊपर आ जाता है। ऑलराइट जी, How do organizations earn carbon currency? Avoid, reduce, remove. तीनों चीजें हैं, varies from industry to industry, and within industry varies from one organization to another. The most important part जी, life of a carbon credit. आप यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं 3 different columns जी. So that's the most important thing जी. Project design है, MRV है, transaction है। जब हम दरमियान में कहीं पहुंच जाते हैं तो हम लोगों का एक सवाल आता है, NDRMF को भी आता है कि जी अच्छा हम standing in the middle of a project जी, अब हमने क्या करना है? So the first thing is how do you design a project जी? So that's where you start the whole thing जी। Project design हो जाएगा, उसके बाद उसकी monitoring हो जाएगी जी, MRV, और फिर उसकी transaction होगी, और जो credit पूरी process में आया वो end पे retire हो जाएगा। That's when the carbon credit retires जी। उसकी age, health के ऊपर dependent होगा कि वो कब retire हो रहा है। जब हम उसके साथ आते हैं तो why is this all important जी? So we are at the CO2 जी, we are at the emission level जी, उसके बाद registration है जब हम project design से MRV पे जा रहे हैं, फिर इट इज इशूड, और कार्बन क्रेडिट जो है वो डबल अकाउंटिंग में नहीं जाएगा, वो जहां पे कैलकुलेट हो गया वो हो जाएगा, इशू हो जाएगा, और उसके बाद वो रिटायरमेंट पे चले जाएगा। तो जो प्रोसेस साइकिल है, वी गॉट टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट कंप्लीटली, हाउ कैन वी बेनिफिट फ्रॉम दिस, एंड वी कैन डू दैट ओनली बाय अंडरस्टैंडिंग द लाइफ ऑफ अ कार्बन क्रेडिट जी। ग्रोथ इन नंबर्स है, सिंस आई हैव बीन आस्क्ड टू ये कि जी थोड़ा रैप अप करें, तो द इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट इज कि ये ओवरऑल नेशनल कार्बन मार्केट्स के ऊपर चीज़ें हैं जी, थोड़े से नंबर्स हैं, इंटरनेशनली किस तरह चीज़ें चल रही हैं, प्राइसेस किस तरह ट्रैजेक्टरी उनकी चल रही है, अभी क्या है, पहले क्या है, किस तरह इंप्रूव कर रहे हैं, और आगे ज़िंदगी में आने वाले दिनों में ये किस तरह किया जा सकता है। कार्बन मार्केट पोटेंशियल फॉर पाकिस्तान, दैट्स वे वी आर जी, क्योंकि हम सब जो बैठे हुए हैं हमें तो इससे एसोसिएटेड हैं कि वो है क्या जी। सब्सटेंशियली जी, पोटेंशियल फॉर इमिशन रिडक्शन, एनर्जी, ट्रांसपोर्ट, इंडस्ट्री, एग्रीकल्चर एंड अदर सेक्टर्स, ये मेन सेक्टर्स लिख दिए गए हैं, उनकी परसेंटेजेस हैं कि हम कितना कितना रिड्यूस कर सकते हैं। और सिर्फ कर नहीं सकते, हमने अपने एनडीसीज के अंदर टारगेट्स भी लिए हैं दुनिया ने 2030 टारगेट्स लिए हैं, स्टॉक टेक पहला हुआ है जी, 2050 के टारगेट्स लिए हैं कि हमने कब तक इम्प्रूवमेंट करना है। और जो पहले डिस्कशंस में चीज़ आई कि जी स्कोप 1, 2, 3, तो 1 तो डायरेक्ट एमिशंस है, 2 और 3 इनडायरेक्ट में चली जाती हैं, और 3 सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट इसलिए क्योंकि वो सप्लायर बेस्ड है, क्योंकि सप्लायर की इमिशंस है। कल को हम एक्सपोर्ट करेंगे, कोई ट्रांजैक्शन किसी के साथ करेंगे तो अब हर बंदा बात करता है इमिशंस की। अभी हम जब ये इवेंट अभी स्टार्ट नहीं हो रहा था तो वैसे ही गप लग रही थी आगे पीछे, तो किसी ने जिक्र किया कि जी अब तो खाना खाने भी जाओ दुबई में, जिक्र किया कि आगे उसकी इमिशंस लिखी हुई हैं। सो दैट्स हाउ इट इज़। आप मीट खा रहे हैं उसकी इमिशंस लिखी हुई हैं, कॉफ़ी पी रहे हैं उसकी इमिशंस लिखी हुई हैं। तो इस हद तक दुनिया जो है वो सेंसिटाइज हो चुकी है और आगे चली गई है उसके अंदर जी। ऑलराइट जी, पोटेंशियल इन कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर जी। इंपॉर्टेंट यह है कि पाकिस्तान भी इस चीज़ के ऊपर है कि अच्छा हमने क्या करना है। सो 26 कंपनीज जी जिन्होंने वॉलंटरी डिसाइड किया था कि हम नेट जीरो को अचीव करेंगे। वाइब्रेंट सस्टेनेबिलिटी ऑब्जेक्टिव्स है जी बाय कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर है। एक्सपोर्ट ओरिएंटेड कंपनीज के लिए तो बहुत ज़रूरी हो जाएगा क्योंकि सीबाम का जिक्र किया गया जो कि क्रॉस बॉर्डर एडजस्टमेंट मैकेनिज्म है जी, कि आइंदा जो आपका परचेजर है, जो बायर है, वो आपकी तमाम इमिशंस को देखेगा। जो क्रेडल टू ग्रेव इमिशंस कहा जाता है वो आपने देखना है कि पूरी सप्लाई लाइन में इमिशंस कितनी है, और वही डिटर्मिन करेंगी कि आइंदा पाकिस्तान बाहर की दुनिया से किस तरह बात कर सकते हैं, हाउ कैन वी एक्सपोर्ट आवर स्टफ जी। फिर एनर्जी सेक्टर है जी, उसके अंदर बहुत सारी चीज़ें हैं। और फिर कार्बन फाइनेंसिंग प्रोवाइड्स द मच नीडेड फाइनेंसिंग फॉर दी ओवरऑल थिंग जी। जहाँ पे कैप एंड ट्रेड की अगर हम मिसाल लें कि जहाँ पे आपकी इमिशंस कम है वहाँ आपके पास इन्वेस्टमेंट्स बहुत सारी आ सकती हैं क्योंकि आप उस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के अंदर डेवलप कर रहे हैं। कमिंग टू द फैक्ट, NDRMF क्या रोल प्ले कर सकता है जी यहाँ पे तमाम के लिए। सो वी आर सपोर्टिंग कार्बन मार्केट्स इन द कंट्री एज पार्ट ऑफ आवर न्यू बिजनेस स्ट्रेटजी जी, एज पार्ट ऑफ आवर स्ट्रेटेजिक फ्रेमवर्क जी। और ये मिड टू लॉन्ग टर्म है। CEO ने जिक्र किया 10 साल की बिजनेस स्ट्रेटजी है, तो उसमें एक मेजर पिलर है इस वक्त कार्बन मार्केट्स को फैसिलिटेट करना फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट साइड एज वेल टूवर्ड्स NOCs, लाइसेंसेस, टूवर्ड्स द प्राइवेट सेक्टर एज वेल, एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट्स के हिसाब से जी। Then assist and support the government bodies for establishing their policy and regulatory frameworks जी, for integrating carbon markets as part of climate action program जी. Third जी, with you guys जी, working with private sector and assisting in aligning their sustainability and carbon emission goals with international regulatory requirements जी. It's a very big opportunity जी. Develop guidance tools and instruments for different industries on technical aspects of carbon markets जी. And then facilitate hands-on training on methodologies, carbon quantification, develop projects, assist in sale of carbon markets, bringing in investments जी, going into voluntary markets including WERA, gold standard Pakistan deal कर रहा है, उसके अंदर तमाम कार्बन इसकी हेल्थ को जनरेट करवाना, कॉस्टिंग करवाना और फिर एक पूरे प्रोसेस को चला देना. So this is just the beginning जी. The NDRMF is there as a platform between and a bridge as well between government and private sector to facilitate all this जी. I'll stop right there, and for the questions, we will go into the panel session. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Fawad, for your insights and for the impactful address. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we move on to our first session, that is going to be a panel discussion. As we look at Pakistan's economy in the face of climate change, it's important to understand the main challenges. Energy stands out, contributing 46% of carbon emissions, followed by transportation at 14%, industries at 22%, agriculture at 12%, and waste management at 6%. So these numbers show why we need specific policies to move forward or to move towards a sustainable, low-carbon future. So in our panel discussion, I'd like to introduce you to Ms. Rabia Bukhari, a seasoned professional with over 13 years of experience at USAID. Rabia has led impactful energy sector projects, utilizing her expertise in budget analysis, technical guidance, and strategic stakeholder engagement. She has driven initiatives to boost private investment in Pakistan energy sector, particularly in small, medium enterprises and women-led businesses. Rabia's contributions have shaped USAID's Pakistan strategy, earning her multiple performance awards and highlighting her dedication to sustainable energy solutions. So she'll be joining us online. She's not here, so big round of applause for Rabia Bukhari. Okay, so before moving on to our next speaker, I would like to thanks to our partners and sponsors, NDRMF, ABL, Maple, Treat, Hyundai Sonata, and Cheesy. So a big round of applause for all the partners and the sponsors who have made this event successful till now. Okay, so I would like to introduce to you to our next panelist, Mr. Hiz Jamali, a senior climate change officer at the Asian Development Bank, boasting 18 years of international experience. His expertise includes integrating climate change into development projects, GHG measurements, forestry, and stakeholder engagement. A big round of applause for Mr. Hiz Jamali. I'll invite all of them at the stage once the set is ready, so I am just introducing them. So we have our next panelist, Mr. Sajid Aslam, partner at SpectraCo and founding partner at Metric Ventures Economy. With over 25 years of expertise in growth strategies, finance, and governance, Sajid has mentored tech ventures and advocated for ESG integration. He is recognized internationally for his initiatives in climate change also. A big round of applause for Sajid Aslam. Well, introducing you to our next panelist, Mr. Naseem Qamar, Director of Health, Safety and Environment at Mari Petroleum Company Limited. With 24 years of expertise in field operations, enterprise risk management, sustainable development, and HSE, Mr. Qamar is currently overseeing the HSE and sustainable development portfolio at MOL. A big round of applause for Mr. Naseem Qamar. Next, we have Mr. Saad Ahmed, currently serving as country lead at Shell Petroleum, with a distinguished career spanning business development, retail operations, and sales management. Saad has also held roles as brand manager at P&G. He holds an MBA in marketing from the Institute of Business Administration's Karachi and serves as a faculty member for IBA program related to communication. Give it up for Saad Ahmed. So we're ready to invite all the panelists on the stage? Okay. And yes, we do have our moderator for this session. We have two moderators for this session. First, I would like to invite Durre Mahmood, OPM, Climate Policy and Climate Finance Specialist. Please welcome Durre Mahmood. Please join us on the stage. And then we have our second moderator, Mr. Fawad Hayat. Fawad, please join us on the stage. And yes, all the panelists. Mr. Hiz Jamali, please join us on the stage. Mr. Sajid Aslam, Mr. Naseem Qamar, and Saad Ahmed. One of our panelists, she'll be joining online. All right, so over to our wonderful moderators.
Thank you, Ji. As beautifully summed up by Fawad and Bilal Saab, that carbon markets can actually create that lucrative financing incentive for private sector companies to sort of invest in clean technologies and projects, with also sort of reducing their carbon emissions. Now, surely providing conducive environment or regulatory reforms that we've been talking about are crucial in sort of operationalization of carbon markets. But like Bilal Saab said, standards, climate financing are also crucial. So is the ESG and reporting that we would be talking about. However, the carbon markets itself cannot just operate without its key players, which are the buyers and sellers, are definitely those are the private sector guys, which we'll be speaking to. And most importantly, they can actually help us to be on that NDC trajectory and meet our targets, which Fawad was actually referring to. Now, giving you a context, private sector globally and even locally are investing in different projects, whether it's the process improvement, say CCU, those are the technologies that our colleagues are going to be discussing, whether it's the NBS, some biodiversity credits, perhaps there are other initiatives that our South Asian country neighbors are taking, also taking place, which are in transport sector, built environment, energy efficiency, that we can touch base in our panel today. So without further delay, we'll move towards the technical panel. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. No, we cannot. Hello?
आवाज़ आ रही है? अब आई, all right.
Should I? Okay. All right, Ji. So starting off, my first question would be definitely to all of you one by one, but I would really be interested to sort of knowing that how you are sort of prepared to sort of participate in the carbon markets. Is carbon markets, whether it's voluntary or compliance, on your radar? Is it a part of your decarbonization strategy, your future plans? Whether you're sort of reflecting in your current initiatives or pipeline initiatives, perhaps would like to know more about your initiatives. I think first I would like to give the floor to Saad, and then we can move to other panelists. Over to you, Saad. Thank you.
Sure. Just wanted to check if I'm audible. Yes, looks like so. So thank you so much, and thank you to NDRMF for organizing this. अगर आप carbon markets की बात देखें, so it's a phased approach. So if you look at Shell, it is not just about participating in the carbon markets, but it's also about reducing emissions first, making our portfolio more efficient, and then of course the realization that it won't be possible that you wake up in 2051 and the world will be a net zero place. So there are unavoidable emissions for which you need to generate carbon credits, either trade them or generate them on your own. Shell has been one of the largest investors in the nature-based solutions project across both the Americas, EU, as well as Asia. So from that perspective, we have a very buoyant look of the carbon markets. Yes, after the Ukraine war lost a couple of years ago, the market has remained depressed. But there is no reason why money won't flow in and good credible projects won't be there. But in terms of as an organization, our view is very, very clear that it needs to be a very credible project. It needs to be a project that benefits the communities. And it needs to be a project that stands the test of time, as well as the very stringent requirements posed by the bodies. So that's an overall overarching approach in terms of our view of the carbon markets.
Sorry. So we'll move toward other colleagues as well. If you perhaps would like to highlight where are you in terms of carbon market strategy, are you thinking in terms of decarbonization plan? Perhaps, sir, I was also talking to you offline, and you were sharing that you're looking into the process improvement, and you've been doing that since long. But how is that related to the carbon markets now, and what is Maari Petroleum thinking, perhaps in the process improvement level, and then participating in the compliance or voluntary markets in future?
Thank you very much. First of all, big thank you for the NDRMF and ICAP both for arranging this nice platform to discuss the ideas. Yes, Maari Petroleum is actively looking on the ESG front. We are the first oil and gas company to have a board level committee established. And last year, we also published our first sustainability report on GRI oil and gas framework. And this year, we are planning to have the reporting frame augmented towards the IFRS S1 and S2. So the idea was to, since long, we have been doing different initiatives in different forms, but now we have adopted a more structured approach targeting GRI, S1 and S2. So on the onset, as we are the oil and gas company that is being under the scrutiny worldwide, so we understand the challenges, risks, and the criticism that the oil and gas companies face. But if we talk about the Pakistan's market right now, so we are, so one thing that was touched upon by one of the speakers, that the transportation is also one of the major contributor in the GHG emissions. So what we see is as part of the MPCL's strategy is to develop indigenous sources in terms of oil and gas in Pakistan, so as to reduce the import bill of the LNG that we are getting through the ship. So the shipping transportation GHG emissions would be reduced. Not only the financial burden would be offset, but the GHG emissions across this transportation can be offsetted. So one thing is to have to produce cleaner energy. On the second front, we are also looking at different opportunities. Right now, we are working on a pilot project, which is carbon capture and storage. We are working with Vera for the carbon credits. Right now, we don't see any options within Pakistan, so we are partnering with the global leaders in terms of carbon crediting. We are also working on the green hydrogen initiatives. So one of the feasibility studies ongoing. So there are like multiple projects that we are going on. Process improvement, yes, as you touched upon, process improvement is one of the fundamental areas that we are working upon to not only measure. So this sustainability report initiation was one of the projects that we wanted to know that what are the sources that are generating emissions and what are the opportunities that we can have to offset those through process initiatives. So one thing that we are doing is to enhance our renewable portfolio as well, and to spend more and more dependency on the fuel, to reduce our dependency on the fuel and enhance our scope 2 at least towards the solar and things like that. And of course, with the establishment of carbon markets within Pakistan, that would facilitate the private sector like us to look for the opportunities not only for selling our projects that are generating enough, that might generate enough CO2 offsets that can be purchased by other companies. So right now we are exploring the opportunities outside, but definitely there is a huge opportunity for this. We also last year signed in COP28 regarding the volunteer signatory for the net zero methane. And we are fully committed as an organization to reduce our footprints. We are also working with NDRMF with regards to mangrove projects. Today afternoon we had a discussion with them and we are engaged with them. So at every front we are fully committed to see whatever the opportunities are where we can bring in as part of our strategy. We are working on not only diversifying the exploration and production portfolio to bring in more indigenous gas so as to reduce the compliance that the country is right now having. I mean, that would help us in terms of GHG reduction as well. Thank you.
If I may, before moving to the other two panelists, if I can draw your attention and request you to speak a little to enlighten on the fugitive emissions, since the two of you belong to that industry, and then a little touching upon the decarbonization strategy. You mentioned last year COP Dubai ji. So a little words on the decarbonization chart on that fact. And before I give floor to you, ji, just a little information for all attendees here, ji, for public. Ji. NDRMF has financed 55,000 acres of mangrove plantation, ji, which would generate carbon credits for the next 60 years. Ji. So we are in the first decade of that. And Mari is coming in as a strong partner in financing further plantation of mangroves in that aspect. So that's like the carbon credit generation, the whole mechanism, and supporting into that financial mechanisms, Ji. So I'll request you to go ahead with fugitive emissions a little bit on that, and then the decarbonization charter, Ji. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So basically on the decarbonization strategy, as I told, that we are working strongly on the process initiatives. So one thing that we are doing is to quantify what are the sources, and we have also started measuring the fugitive emissions. So fugitive emissions is a very small leaks and seeps across your process industry, and as you see that the oil and gas industry, the older plants and the older facilities where we can see, although These are being run since many decades, but there is an opportunity to identify the fugitive emissions in order to understand what are the leak points and try to rectify. So this is one area. Second area is your fuel consumptions in your own utilization, where you are having your own, say, accommodations and colonies. Like we are operating one of the biggest fields in Mari field, district Ghodki, where we have a housing. So we are looking at the opportunities to reduce further our fuel gas consumption. We are running a gas turbine. We are looking at the opportunities of solarizing such efforts. We're also reducing and trying to reduce the flare gases. So like there are like two types of flare. One is the emergency shutdown system flare when you have to do it per force per se, because this is the safety system. But in the routine flaring, we are targeting it to be net zero flaring in that. So there are like a very a comprehensive strategy set in our technical domains, right from the exploration and then reservoir, production and operating fields. And so everyone is geared up to see what are the opportunities within the process improvement frameworks that can be brought in order to not only reduce the emission, but also utilizing the technological advancement within the country or from the abroad. So we are investing in technologies that can bring further efficiencies with regards to the power generation, the gas turbine usages, there are like other units which are consuming gas. So we are looking at the options that how can we further improve on this front. And transportation, of course, this is one of the major areas that we are looking at. I mean, and on the supplier side, we have also like introduced initiatives to reduce or at least quantify the scope 3. In our last report, we were like limited up to scope 1 and 2. So we are augmenting to scope 3 this year, so as to understand and look at the opportunities that can be availed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So before we move to the multilateral guys, I would give the floor to Shiljit Saab. And particularly, like sir said, that they are also quantifying and they're measuring. We all know that MRV, which also Fawad has touched base, is very important when we talk about carbon credit verification. So sir, on the ESG, I see that you're working there. What are some of the opportunities, how you're sort of helping the organization to sort of quantify and report on their, and what are the opportunities really out there, and how are you supporting? Thank you.
Thank you. So, first of all, whenever we go with the carbon market as well, you need that monitoring and validation, and that requires a certain data. What was the concept paper, what was the design, and how the project is being monitored. Right now, we are doing 7 different projects on the carbon, which every project has got a carbon as one of our assets. It's include the nature-based solutions as well, and it's include the science-based solution. Most of our projects are, practically right now, all the projects are outside Pakistan. It's US and Europe. And then one of the interesting demand we are getting on, particularly in Europe, where they are funding those projects which have got a basic economic activity and a potential to generate that carbon credit or REC or other environmental credits for that matter. They really want to track each asset up to the level that how they are performing on a different mandate and a different KPIs, including the ESG reporting on a certain standards, or whether it was regulated. If we are talking about Europe, so Europe has got their own standards and regulatory requirements. So when we look at the carbon credits, it's not that you conceive a project and you start a project. Ultimately, you have to deliver that as well, and that's require a constant monitoring. And now, there was a time like before 2021, 22, when we were more on a clean development mechanism. So there were a chance that we can do and claim a certain carbon credit as a carbon credit, and it was being sold in the market in a very different way. Today, if you try to sell those carbon credit which does not have effective data to support that, you will not be able to get more than $1 or maybe $2 if they have better data. But at the same time, in a voluntary market, Amazon has launched Abacus as their own standard, that they has got a separate label, VCU, like the voluntary carbon units, which is not only how you are removing, avoiding, or reducing the carbon, what are the co-benefit, how it's affecting the society, how the biodiversity is affecting. And they are putting a price on that mechanism. So if you want to create a pipeline for Amazon, which Pakistan is quite ready to do that if we do it right. So they want to put up the money up front, even for the consultation, for the development of the projects. They are looking for the pipeline, and they are very much focused on the nature-based solution, and that's where Pakistan comes into play. Second part, now other voluntary standards, if you look at VERA and the gold standard, they are also updating themselves. Another opportunity, again, that's require a sustainability reporting, and most of the accountants are there, that's require those validation data. EU ETS, emission trading system or schemes, they do not restrict the carbon project coming only from Europe. UK does, Europe doesn't. They did that in the between, but now it's open. So there are 6 or 7 key industries. If they do their carbon credit projects right, whatever they are doing as an economic activity, they will have quite a different kind of pricing in an EU ETS. But definitely that's require a different standards. It's stringent than the voluntary standards and all that. So the question comes back from an opportunity perspective, are we ready in terms of really building that talent first, and most of the talent sitting here, who can understand that space well, quantify that information, help engineering and the other department to understand the standards and their implication within the design, and then report that. And then, end of the day, provide assurance. So that entire cycle, which we used to use and still using in a financial transactions, that's exactly what happens here. It's just that like the way the options and the warrant came into the play, how we have utilized that, how we have created the financial instrument around it, this is the same space. This is again an opportunity where you can design a financial instrument, and particularly hybrid one, which can have a grant, which can have a commercial capital, and the ROI can come from the underlying economic activity and plus carbon as an asset. And as soon as one project is registered for that, and that's a key area, it's not that how much money you make from the carbon credit. Once your project is validated for any carbon, in an international standard, any standard, whether in a voluntary one or in a compliance market, there's a lot of investors sitting out who are looking for the project where they have a mandate that they can only invest in the projects which are green. And as soon as your project qualify for that, I'm not saying that it has delivered, it's become eligible based on that standard, there's a money sitting out there where the investors are struggling to put that money because they are not getting those projects which can have an underlying data to substantiate that it's ESG compliant or it's a green project on their mandate side. So if we just look at from Pakistan perspective, our organization, whether it's a public sector or a private sector, if they start looking at it as an opportunity and start taking steps towards that, even they commit to that, these are the targets they are going to do, and they are bold enough and start tracking that information, it's lead to the carbon credit, so you can have a product to sell in a carbon market, but at the same time you can attract a lot of international investment where people are looking for projects and they can't get that one. So that's where the sustainability reporting come into play, and that's why it's important to really get into that space and start tracking it.
Saad, you want to add something before I jump to the multilaterals?
So I think really interesting point my fellow panelists brought up, which was, are we ready for it? And it is very important to understand कि जब आप अगर एक carbon project लगाने जाते हैं, इन्होंने बिल्कुल सही कहा, ऐसा नहीं होगा कि आज आप सोचेंगे कल वो project लग जाएगा. The techno-commercial understanding needs to be exceptional. The understanding of how do you identify the societal impact. आज के वो दौर आपका चला गया, आज से शायद 7-8 साल पहले वो दौर था कि जब एक sub-optimal carbon project also used to fetch you a good price. But now it is very important for you to have qualified individuals who look after the entire social aspect. Because जब आपका verification का या audit का process आता है, the entire social welfare mechanism is key for you being able to trade that. That is very important. The understanding of the technical aspect, that is extremely important. To understand the fact that it is not only good for the environment, it genuinely does makes good commercial sense. उस चीज़ की understanding. वेरा की requirement होती है कि you have to take accountability of that project for 30 years. 30 साल का जो project होता है, so it is a heavy duty investment which requires a lot of resource allocation. So from that perspective, I think it is one of the key areas that is stopping Pakistan from becoming a robust market for carbon. That is where, like most of the industries, we are falling behind the likes of India, Indonesia, Malaysia. So that is a huge challenge.
Right. I think we're very fortunate to also have the multilateral development agencies within us today, both the USAID and ADB. So I think taking the opportunity and building on what Saad and Shajid said, that, you know, resource mobilization is necessary, project developer presence is important, technocratic understanding, technical feasibility is very important to sort of going forward. So again, I would like to ask first from his Jamali Saab that, you know, how multilaterals are actively jumping in to sort of operationalize this carbon market in Pakistan. What are you guys doing? What are the pipeline initiatives, country priorities? How's ADB thinking going forward, especially considering that you're working in infrastructure projects and where there's opportunity for transport, build, environment, and other hard-to-abate sectors? Over to you, sir. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure to be here. And so I guess when we talk about carbon markets, essentially it's a means for decarbonization. That's our main goal. So as just for the audience, if you're not aware of Asian Development Bank, we are a multilateral development bank, and our core business is lending for development. That can include sovereign loans to the government as well as to the private sector. But in Pakistan, it's largely sovereign loans, which means we work with the government to develop projects which, across sectors. So I think what has changed in the last couple of years is that all our investments now have to be aligned with the Paris Agreement. So board will not even consider a project that shows that it compromises our climate agenda in any way. For example, it increases greenhouse gas emissions, or it weakens our adaptation to climate change. So that is, I think that's, and we are leveraging our position as a lender to incorporate as many climate related features into the projects as possible. So that is the broader landscape of how we are lending. And then coming to the topic of carbon markets. So ADB has been engaging with carbon markets for more than a decade now. And some of the initiatives actually have closed now. This goes back to CDM days, the Clean Development Mechanism. There was not a lot of confidence in the market. Investors weren't really supporting projects. And Asian Development Bank was providing guarantees to those investors so that they could invest in those kind of projects. Now, the Paris Agreement is in place. There is Article 6, which is a whole new world of carbon markets, and there's a lot of work going on preparedness, and we have ADB is investing a lot in technical assistance in helping countries to prepare for the new world of carbon markets under the Paris Agreement. And one of the examples I think I will give specific to Pakistan is agriculture is a big part of our society and GDP. So one of the things we realize is we really don't know our baselines. We don't have good data on greenhouse gas emissions. If you look at our greenhouse gas inventories, they have large uncertainties. And agriculture is one example. We started working with rice farmers about, let's reduce methane emissions. And their first question was, well, what's in it for me? Why should I do it? It's more work for me. So, and that's a valid question. And it's probably every business person, and you know about business more than I do, so that's a valid question. We have to answer that. So we started working saying, okay, let's develop a carbon market project. You will get some incentive, but there is no data. So now we are actually, our hands are in the mud measuring greenhouse gas emissions as we speak. So that is, I think that's very important. We need to understand our baseline. We need to have some solid data because if we don't know our starting point, we don't know how much we progress. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
I think now we'll give the floor to Rabia, and Rabia would like to especially know in terms of concessional financing as also highlighted by Bilal Saab. And we would want to know more, as USAID has been very crucial, especially in bringing the energy efficiency reforms in the country, private sector investment mobilization at the EE, energy efficiency, and decarbonization. And so we want to know more on the carbon market side. What are you doing? What are the future plans? How does the financing landscape looks like, and how can private sector also benefit, and what are you guys doing in Pakistan and abroad? Over to you. Thank you, Rabia.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak on behalf of USAID. Basically, USAID as a development agency has a vision in terms of creating a world which is resilient, prosperous, and equitable with net zero emissions, basically. And that is why we came up with our own USAID agency climate strategy back in 2022, which informs our targets basically as an agency between 2022 through 2030, basically. So as part of our strategy, we are taking strategic approach in terms of facilitating maybe a targeted direct actions in terms of like mobilizing finance, reducing emissions, helping with meeting NDC's targets, not only internally in US, but also abroad in other countries where USAID operates. And a very important element of our strategy also talks about driving system change, bringing the market incentives and the enabling environment, which Fawad and others have also touched upon, which is important. And as an agency, also, we are transforming ourselves, the way we operate, in terms of committing ourselves, doing our part by transforming and changing our operations, are substantially like reducing carbon emissions from our own operations, and work on how we adapt to climate change going forward. And I think that is why we have taken a holistic approach in terms of our humanitarian and development assistance as an agency, where we're trying to integrate climate into all sort of areas and programming. It's not only energy sector where it's very obvious to bring the change in terms of energy transition or reducing emissions, as it's a highly contributing sector. Although as a country, we are not contributing much, but similarly to methane emissions also, the country is almost emitting like 30% of methane emissions. And major sectors are dairy livestock sector, waste and fossil fuels, basically. So energy transition becomes even more important when we talk about working with, bringing more renewables. So from that regard, obviously, we are taking various sectoral approaches as well. When we read the market, obviously, looked at the market needs, and we assessed, basically conducted a market landscape analysis to inform our programming in climate finance and carbon markets world, basically. We looked at and find out after a lot of stakeholder consultations and discussions with various players and industry players as well, that Pakistan definitely is not ready right now for immediately going into a compliance market. So it's very important that, I mean, at the outset right now, we start with really voluntary carbon markets, and which is the need of the hour, I would say, because a lot of globally, also a lot of markets have started with these VCMs first, voluntary markets, and then they moved into compliance. And we, as an emerging market, also, it makes a lot of sense that the private sector definitely has a huge need, and they are looking out for the voluntary setup, which can help them, sell and purchase credits. So after our analysis, obviously, we find out really, and as part of the findings, we looked into two major work streams to support. One was the government work stream, where we are helping and working closely with Ministry of Climate Change to come up with the VCM, voluntary carbon markets, really the framework, the the rules in terms of where it defines. You cannot highly regulate this market, obviously, but the government definitely has to play important role in terms of when it comes to, especially for the project developers who bring the technical and financial know-how and capabilities to do the projects for the carbon offsets. But at the same time, for the corresponding adjustments type of projects, government would need to give authorizations. And same was the case when it came into the Delta Blue in this project in Karachi, Sindh, basically. So we are helping basically develop that framework which lays out the roles and responsibilities, like authority, which would have authority to approve these authorizations, what kind of fee or levy will be applicable. And basically this could be a revenue stream only for the private sector to invest more into mitigation and adaptation projects, but this is not really a revenue stream for the government to utilize anything for their own, but it would at least reduce the burden on the public financing end if the carbon credit market work well with that framework which we are trying to develop and help support the government. The other important aspect as part of our findings were to support private sector needs. Basically developing, this is, I would say, for Pakistan, fairly or relatively a new area. There are developers definitely who have signed up, who are signatory to not only net zero commitments, but also there are project developers or projects who have registered for gold and Vera standards as well. So there are projects which are at various stages of, at various development stages. So there, we saw that there is a huge need for in terms of understanding the carbon credits. So if you have to ensure high quality carbon credits to be produced and sold, obviously you have to develop the capacity in terms of understanding the overall carbon markets world, how it is being done in other various markets, what can be really relatively effective and useful for the Pakistani market. So we also have launched an accelerator program for private sector developers, where we shortlisted and selected some early stage and advanced stage projects. So we have looked at their eligibility for carbon credits purpose, and we are now providing them technical assistance and capacity building on various, carbon markets like fundamentals, how they have to develop their project from the very beginning, keeping in view the carbon credits as part of their planning and development process. So these are some of the things which we are doing, and we will be going forward also continuing to develop the capacity of public and private sector and provide transaction advisory services in that space.
Thank you, Rabia, for that. Since we're sitting in among people जी who only talk about numbers जी, और आज हमने कोशिश भी यही की है कि let's talk about numbers and they are attractive honestly. लेकिन अगर हम opportunity को avail नहीं करेंगे तो this might just become a threat. We've tried to bring in people जी from multilaterals जी जो कि development resilience के ऊपर काम कर रहे हैं, investments जा रही हैं, लेकिन discussion को debate को trigger करना आज मकसद ये है कि we got to understand कि the cost of development as well. हिज बैठे हैं ADB से, मैं इनसे भी सवाल भी यही पूछूंगा कि development bank being converted into a climate bank, how do you intend balancing the two? क्योंकि आज जो पैनल इकट्ठा भी किया है उसके ऊपर एक बैकग्राउंड में एक थॉट ये थी कि we bring in the ESG guy, we bring you guys जो कि एक large $1 billion लेके आते हैं for the development जी, और उसके साथ जो carbon emissions associated है. So we can't really take that off from the table कि जी वो क्या होगा. So you got to have a balance between the two. मैंने अभी mention किया कि क्या क्या policies और चीज़ों को आगे लेके चला जा रहा है. And then the guys who actually earn money to run the economy. So we've tried to blend in people कि अच्छा जहाँ से पैसे generate हो रहे हैं from profit making and the money which is coming for development purposes, इन दोनों को जब carbon के lens से देखा जाता है तो offsetting कैसे किया जाता है. So my question to you is, how do you see from the ADB's perspective balancing the two between development and becoming a climate bank for that matter? And then recently you've gone to the extent of becoming a bank which would even buy carbon credits for that matter and trade on that. So over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Fuad. That's excellent question. I think we've just started to see development and climate change as the same thing, or very closely related. And I think sitting in Pakistan, we've seen the effects of climate change, the disasters, and where the development that has happened in past did not integrate climate resilience. And the cost is in front of us. I think you guys are the experts, you know the numbers. So I think we strongly acknowledge that, and that is why we think that from now on, every development activity that ADB supports has to be aligned with Paris Agreement, and it's not just compliance for the sake of compliance. It's when we say Paris Agreement, we mean compliance with climate resilience and low carbon development. So, which is why I think, like just a few weeks ago, we were talking to Punjab government about a new project on building new schools. And those kind of departments are really not used to hearing the word climate change in those conversations. So when we started talking, we have to build the schools so they are resilient, though they are low carbon, because we have to address both the resilience as well as the emission. And that triggered a lot of conversations, and we started talking, okay, now let's build a new code. How do we do new constructions, integrate different features into those? So that's just one example, and that the same goes to health, same goes to any sector. So I think we sort of see it as the climate change and development as a part of the same equation, and it's actually being incentivized. So if you develop a project, if it has a stronger component of climate finance, you are more likely to get concessional loans. So there is an incentive for the borrower as well now to integrate climate change into their projects, because then the interest the terms of that loan will be softer. So that's a strong incentive. And so I guess that covers your question?
That pretty much covers my question. I think that was the thing which I wanted you to share with the audience as well, that how attractive the overall thing is. You bring in the climate finance, the climate angle into the whole thing, and your numbers can increase in a starving economy. That is what matters. In order to bring in investments, in order to bring in money into this economy, in order to bring in foreign exchange into this one, climate angle is something which has a pivotal role to play now. Since we're reaching the end and I've been asked to wind up, so I'll ask Dore to please conclude the overall thing. Thank you.
Okay, just conclusion or the last remarks? Last question, sorry. Okay. So I think, the conclusion, I think one last question that's very important, and I would like to ask the private sector, especially some of you who are already working on the pipeline initiatives, that what is the active support that you really need right now? Is it the financing? Is it the project developers, like the project preparation facilities at the moment? Or we do not have that technical capacity in the country? Fawad pretty much explained this project cycle. So where are we lagging? Because both Shajid Saab and Saad mentioned that right now we don't have, except one or two projects that are up and running, we don't have many transactional projects, and that too are in international markets, not locally, because we do not have the registry. So over to you with the major challenges and where you need active support, and where organizations like NDRMF, USAIDs and others can actually quickly help you to sort of tap into some bankable projects, some low-hanging fruits. Thank you.
Sure. So I think before Shajid Saab goes, the first thing is competency development. So for instance, abhi Pakistan you don't have a challenge in terms of attracting money. What you have a challenge is if someone has money, who does he go to? we aren't able to even count on our fingers credible carbon developers or people who you can back in terms of that these are 2-3 organizations who can develop a project, let alone develop a project, even writing a PDD. So project, किसी भी carbon project की जो life cycle होती है, from the time you start thinking about it to the time you put the first tree in the ground is almost 2.5 to 3 years. That is the kind of time it goes. Organizations like ADB, NDRMF, Ministry of Climate Change, if there is one area where the private sector would really appreciate help is competency development. Taking people in and helping them develop an understanding of what carbon markets are, what do project developers do. As a project proponent, आपका क्या role होता है, आपकी commercial understanding, technical understanding, societal understanding, financial modeling, all those sort of things are gravely in dearth right now. And that is, in my view, Shajil Saab may have a different view, in my view, that is the biggest thing that is stopping us from investing openly in Pakistan. अगर मैं आपको छोटी सी example दूँ, फवाद ने जिस तरह कहा, voluntary carbon market in 2022 was around $2 billion. This is expected to float up to $40 billion by 2030. We will lose out if we don't have the competency. सिंध ने एक project किया है, और इस एक project के मद में they are going to bank around $250 million per annum for the next 20 years. So that is the kind of scope. And I'll hand over to Shajil Saab.
Okay, right. I will fully second the opinion put forward. I think the competency development is one area, core area, I think that the private sector, government sector and all, Ministry of Climate Change, NDRMF, we can jointly work upon to understand the project life cycle. The second thing is that we need to put forth the regulatory framework and the policy. I think the working is ongoing. I think that would help the because a lot of projects that we think and conceive and then we just drop because of the lack of clear advice and regulatory framework available within Pakistan. So we are working with Vera and other companies just to see the opportunities for carbon crediting. So within the oil and gas sector, as a private sector, we do understand there is a huge room and there are plenty number of projects that can be materialized. But I think the competency development as well as the regulatory framework and the policy framework would help. And the third part that we also need to increase through, this platform is providing that, increase the public awareness, because we are a very large population. So we need to build the awareness into societies and into general public that the responsible use of energy and responsible use of resources is one area. One thing that Fawad touched upon, I think the CEO of the NDRMF touched upon, although our total, if we count on numbers, the GHG emissions is less, but if we talk in terms of carbon intensity, we are the biggest emitters. So here comes the opportunity that we can always do a kind of process improvement projects as well as some other volunteer or compliance projects in terms of reducing the carbon footprints. And in addition to this, since these projects would be conceptualized and materialized into different segment of the society, so society understanding and their buy-in is also necessary. So as we grow into this debate and in these workshops kind of thing, I think we need to bring in more and more from the universities and academias like NUST, LUMS, and ICAP is already part of this. So I think the more we include the society members, the general public, especially the new generation who is studying in universities, they need to understand, because there was a lot of focus on the environmental engineering and the sustainability within Pakistan right now. I think this is a very great opportunity to collaborate with the institutions, the educational institutes, to bring them together to work collaboratively in order to fight and join this journey. Thank you.
Sorry, I just want to add one thing. I think for the accountants, it's important to understand, and that's where they have got a great role. Carbon credits are not in isolation, so there has to be a business and there has to be a ROI. So we cannot go and create a business that this business is only for carbon credits, so I just get acres of land and put the plant there. It's not going to work. The cost of that is too high that a carbon credit is not going to offset it. So the difference now when we look at the business opportunity, we just have to have a sustainability lens there to see where the opportunities and risk lies. And when you start drilling it down, you will figure out that how it's reducing the cost. When we talk about removing the carbon emission or avoiding the carbon emission, there is a cost also which you are avoiding because it's coming from energy or somewhere there was a waste. So we have to understand that space. So you are doing the things for the right reason, and the carbon credit is an additional return which comes out of it, provided the talent can identify where the opportunity lies. So when we talk about what support private sector needs you to really come up and help them to quantify that thing and make sure they can see it in a through a very different lens, not through a compliance, but through the monetization model that whatever good things I'm doing, this is the additional model it's going to drive. One research which came out that all the sustainability, ESG drive and the climate action drive which we are seeing in the world, it's not because of a regulator, it's because the investor is asking that. And why investor is asking that? In the next 6 year, 68 trillion is going in an intergenerational inheritance, and the generation, millennials are going to inherit it, and they are very much eco-conscious. So they are the one who are an investor, they are the one who are a primary consumer. So that's why all asset managers around the world, they know that why this mandate is changing and why the sustainability is an important element. So they want to invest. The question comes back to us that are we ready to see those opportunities within our own business where we stand? And the carbon credit would be additional revenue, additional return, but the bigger return will always come by improving that economic activity in terms of output or reducing the cost side of it. So there is a significant role how we see things, even from a financial and accounting perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ji, for that. Moderator से मुझे लग रहा है कि अब हमारे उठने का टाइम है. The important part is, जी, I understand कि पिछला 1.5 घंटा जो भी हमने डिबेट ट्रिगर किया या उस डिस्कशन को जो आगे लेके चल रहे हैं उसमें 3 बहुत ज़रूरी चीज़ें हैं. I understand कि ये पूरे दिन की भी डिस्कशन नहीं है. It's more than that. We got to discuss it a lot. We got to learn a lot, जी. And most importantly, we need to timely implement the whole thing in the space we are in, जी. So with that, Ji, I thank you our panelists, I thank you Dure, I thank you everybody for listening, Ji. NDRMF की website जो है उसके ऊपर भी तमाम चीज़ें हैं, for queries भी हम available हैं हर वक्त, जी. Panelists की information भी सारी जो है वो seminar में आएगी. Please feel free to shoot your queries, questions, most important recommendations, जी. Thank you so much, Ji. Thank you everybody.
All right, that was such an eye-opening session. A big round of applause for all the panelists. Well, as Fawad was mentioning, that the audience is much more interested in numbers. So on a lighter note, a lot of chartered accountants are sitting here. Chartered accountants are the only people who can talk about balance sheet and make it sound like an action movie. So a big round of applause for all the chartered accountants who are sitting here. All right, I would like to invite Mr.